Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade. This is Reading with Rashonda. We are reading The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chesnutt. We are about halfway through chapter 23, and let's dive back in. I was a member of the first legislature after the war, Wayne was saying. When I went up from Sampson in the fall, I had to pass through Smithfield. I got in town in the afternoon and put up at the best hotel. Then the landlord didn't have no suspicion about what I was a white man, and he gave me a room, and I had supper and breakfast, and went on to Raleigh next morning. When the session was over, I come along back, and when I got to Smithfield, I drive up to the same hotel. I noticed as soon as I got there that the place had run down considerable. There was weeds growing in the yard, the windows was dirty, and everything round there looked kinder lonesome and shiftless. Then the landlord met me at the door. He looked mighty down in the mouth and says he, "Look at here, what made you come and stop at my place without telling me you was a black man? Before you come through this town, I had a first-class business. But when folks found out that a nigger had put up here, business dropped right off and I've had to shut up my hotel. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for running a poor man what had never done no harm to you. You've done a mean, low-lived thing, and a just God'll punish you for it." I mean, he didn't go around saying he was white. He also didn't go around saying he was black. He was just trying to stay at a hotel. When I roll up into a hotel, I don't say, "Hello, I'm Rashonda Cade, black woman." I mean, you can see I'm black, but nobody does that. He just assumed the guy was white. That's on him, as my daughter would say. "The poor man actually bust into tears," continued Mr. Wayne magnanimously, "and I felt so sorry for him. He was a poor white man trying to get up in the world that I hauled out my purse and gave him $10, and he appeared monstrous glad to get it." "How good-hearted, how kind," murmured the ladies. "It done credit to your feelings." "Don't believe a word of them lies," muttered one young man to another sarcastically. "He couldn't pass for white, lesson it was a mighty dark night." Okay, I was actually thinking the same thing. But hey. Upon this glorious evening of his life, Mr. Jefferson Wayne had one distinctly hostile critic, of whose presence he was blissfully unconscious. Frank Fowler had not been invited to the party. His family did not go with Mary B's set. Rena had suggested to her mother that he be invited, but Miss Molly had demurred on the ground that it was not her party and that she had no right to issue invitations. It is, however, her house. Poor Frank. It is quite likely that she would have sought an invitation for Frank from Mary B., but Frank was black and would not harmonize with the rest of the company, who would not have Miss Molly's reasons for treating him well. Oh, that's so sad. So colorism is just blazing here. Like Mr. Wayne is kind of darker of the light-skinned people who are there, and they're like, "You couldn't pass for white. What are you talking about?" Frank actually looks like a black person, complexion-wise, and they would not have welcomed him there. Remember, only the lightest-skinned people were in this set of people, of which clearly Rena and Miss Molly belonged. That's so sad. It is quite likely that she would have sought an invitation for Frank from Mary B., but Frank was black and would not harmonize with the rest of the company, who would not have Miss Molly's reasons for treating him well. She had compromised the matter by stepping across the way in the afternoon and suggesting that Frank might come over and sit on the back porch and look at the dancing and share in the supper. Oh, you can't come to the party, but you can hang out outside of the party and watch. Is that supposed to be a consolation? To me, that is super sad, but it also reminds me of unboxing. I have this new thing. You don't have it, but you can watch me open it. Like, I don't really understand that. And if you can help me understand, please type in the comments and help me understand, because I don't get it. Or watching people play video games, I kind of get that a little more. Like, we watch sports on television, I guess that's same, but the unboxing, I have this new gadget, watch me unwrap it. Nah, you don't have one. Frank was not without a certain honest pride. He was sensitive enough, too, not to care to go where he was not wanted. Good for him. He would have curtly refused any such maimed invitation to any other place, but would he not see Rena in her best attire, and might not she, perhaps in passing, speak a word to him? That's so sad. Thank you, Miss Molly, he replied. I'll probably come over. You're a big fool, boy. I'll leave it to your parent to call you out. You're a big fool, boy, observed his father after Miss Molly had gone back across the street. To be sticking around them yellow niggers across the street and slobbering and slavering over them and hanging around their back to us in death they was white folks. Okay, I don't know what that said. Okay. You're a big fool, boy, to be sticking around them yeller niggers across the street and slobbering and slavering over them and hanging around their back door. Oh, okay, hanging around their back door wasn't if, oh, I guess wasn't if they were white folks. I'd see them dead first. Well, that's a little harsh, but I get it. Like, no, no, son, don't go over there. If you are not good enough for them, they are not good enough for you. Frank himself resisted the temptation for half an hour after the music began, but at length he made his way across the street and stationed himself at the window opening upon the back piazza. When Rena was in the room, he had eyes for her only, but when she was absent, he fixed his attention mainly upon Wayne. With jealous clairvoyance, he observed that Wayne's eyes followed Rena when she left the room and lit up when she returned. Frank had heard that Rena was going away with this man, and he watched Wayne closely, liking him less the longer he looked at him. To his fancy, Wayne's style and skill were affectation, his good nature mere hypocrisy, and his glance at Rena the eye of the hawk upon his quarry. He had heard that Wayne was unmarried, and he could not see how, this being so, he could help wishing Rena for a wife. That's so sweet. Rena is so awesome. Any man who is unmarried would clearly want her for a wife. Aww. Frank would have been content to see her marry a white man who would have raised her to a plane worthy of her merits. In this man's shifty eye, he read the liar. His wealth and standing were probably as false as his seeming good humor. I get that from Frank, not necessarily the part about a white man would raise her to a plane worthy of her merits. Not saying he didn't believe that, but like I can see Frank being like, okay, she's going to marry a white guy and she's going to be white. Clearly, I can't compete with that. Right? Let her live her white life and be happy. Oh, but she's going to marry a black man? Then I can be the black man she can marry. What's it going to be? You or me, Wayne? All right. Is that you, Frank? Said a soft voice near at hand. He looked up with a joyful thrill. Rena was peering intently at him, as if trying to distinguish his features in the darkness. It was a bright moonlight night, but Frank stood in the shadow of the piazza. Yes'm, it's me, Miss Rena. Your mammy said I could come over and see you all dance. You ain't been out on the floor at all tonight. No, Frank, I don't care for dancing. I shall not dance tonight. This answer was pleasing to Frank. If he could not hope to dance with her, at least the men inside, at least this snake in the grass from down the country, should not have that privilege. But you must have some supper, Frank, said Rena. I'll bring it myself. No, Miss Rena, I don't care for nothing. I didn't come over to eat. Really, I didn't. Nonsense, Frank, there's plenty of it. I have no appetite, and you shall have my portion. She brought him a slice of cake and a glass of eggnog. When Miss Molly, a minute later, came out upon the piazza, Frank left the yard and walked down to the street toward the old canal. Rena had spoken softly to him. She had fed him with her own dainty hands. She had fed him. Maybe that just means her dainty hands brought him the food, not that it was like wedding cake style. Here. He might never hope that she would see in him anything but a friend, but he loved her, and he would watch over her and protect her wherever she might be. He did not believe that she would ever marry the grinning hypocrite masquerading back there in Miss Molly's parlor, but the man would bear watching. Miss Molly had come to call her daughter into the house. Rena, she said, Mr. Wayne wants to know if you won't dance just one dance with him. Yes, Rena, pleaded Mary B., who followed Miss Molly out to the piazza. Just one dance. I don't think you're treating my company just right, Cousin Rena. You're going down there with him, added her mother, and it'd be just as well to be on friendly terms with him. Wayne himself had followed the women. Surely, Miss Rena, you're going to honor me with one dance. I'd go away from this party sad at heart. I'd go away from this party sad at heart if I hadn't stood up once it with the young lady or the house. As Rena, weakly persuaded, placed her hand on Wayne's arm and entered the house, a buggy coming up Front Street paused a moment at the corner, and then turning slowly drove quietly up the nameless by street, concealed by the intervening cedars, until it reached a point from which the occupant could view through the open front window the interior of the parlor. Who's in this buggy? I don't know. But that is the end of chapter 23. I am Rashonda Cade. We are reading House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chesnutt. This is Reading with Rashonda.